Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our latest Ask the President webinar. Today, we're with NJBIA President Michele Siekerka. We'll be talking to you about what's new here at the association and also about some of the hot topics that we've been working on your behalf down here at the state capitol. A few housekeeping matters before we begin. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you automatically in the next day or so. Also, we will be emailing you the slides for today's presentation in a separate email, so be on the lookout for those. Additionally, if you can take a quick look on your screen, you see we have posted the PowerPoint presentation, so please feel free to download that now if you'd like to. Also, after Michele completes her presentation, she'll be taking all of your questions. Today's presentation will be two parts. The first part, Michele will be talking about the association and some of the activities we've been undergoing here. The second part, Michele will be talking about public policy, legislation, and some of the things we've been working on. So we will take your questions after the first part and then all of your questions at the end of the presentation. So now let's get things started. I'd like to turn things over to Michele Siekerka. Michele?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining me today on what is a beautiful July summer day. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day to spend some time with me. Today, I'd like to take you behind the scenes at BIA and the first part of our presentation and talk about some of the exciting products and services that we are planning as we continue in our strategic planning here at NJBIA. Following that part of the discussion, we'll take a break for any questions around our planning and how that might affect you and any thoughts and comments you have on it. And then we're going to shift and we're going to take a look ahead at our proactive legislative agenda for this coming year now that the budget is behind us. So I can't believe that it is 10 months since I've joined NJBIA. They do say that time flies when you're having fun. It surely is exciting times here at NJBIA. We are never at a loss for exciting issues to deal with around the block at the State House or great interaction with our members. I've continued my listening tour over the past 10 months, and I continue to enjoy my opportunity to sit down with our members, whether it's one-on-one, in groups, or before audiences, to talk about BIA, but also, and most important, to hear from you, our members, about what's important to you and how NJBIA can be the most effective that we can for you. So what I want to share with you now is another part of our listening tour, if you will, is we just recently completed a statewide market research survey as part of our planning. This survey included members, non-members, and past members of NJBIA, and I want to share some of the high-level results with you. It is these types of survey results, the information we received, and what I've heard along my listening tour that's helping to inform our continuing planning for the future of the organization. So let me start with the really good news that overall NJBIA members are quite happy with their membership. In fact, we were told by our survey company that we received an exceptionally high score for member satisfaction. Now that said, we know there's always room for improvement, and we'll talk about some of that room for improvement in a little while. What were some of the themes that came out of the survey? We learned that email is the primary channel for our members to stay up to date with NJBIA information. But following right after that is New Jersey Business Magazine and our newly launched New Jersey Business Today, which is our daily e-news service. Our members tell us that these communication mechanisms help them to stay up to date not just on what's going on with BIA for purposes of membership, but it is the place to go for New Jersey business news. And as we all know, unfortunately, today in the media, it's very hard to find good news being shared about all the good things going on in our business community. So New Jersey Business Magazine and New Jersey Business Today is a great vehicle to get that information. We also learned that while our members value our advocacy efforts, and as many of you know, our organization was built on being your voice for business, while our members value our advocacy, we did learn that there needs to be more of a bottom line focus on how that advocacy affects your individual business. We need to better articulate the benefits of our advocacy for you, contextualizing the message and actually translating it into dollars and cents, showing you that how our efforts save you money, save you time, or cut red tape. Our members did tell us that the advice that we provide on laws and regulations is a key benefit to them, and this is something that we'll be doing much more of, and you'll hear about that in the future. Events. While those who attend our events enjoy them, we know that attendance at our events overall could be much better. Our biggest challenge is, and what we learned, is that our events aren't necessarily conducive to small business. Whether it's because of the geography or the type of issue that we are addressing, a key indication is that we need to do a better job reaching out to our small businesses and provide the types of events that they need. And I'll share with you in a little bit how we're going to go about doing that. We know that we have tremendous opportunities to grow our membership to be more reflective of the state-level mix of socio-demographic, geographic, and sector representation that makes New Jersey the great diverse state that it is. Certainly, you can only imagine that geographic considerations of running a statewide organization can prove quite challenging. It's very difficult to be everything to everybody all the time. But what we need to do is focus on segmentation and looking at very specifically what it is that our unique members need. In fact, giving the right product for the right audience. Because we know in New Jersey, certainly business is not a one-size-fits-all, and therefore the products and services that we deliver can't be a one-size-fits-all either. Another key indication, this was interesting that we've learned, is that exporting is a critical issue to New Jersey small business. And we have been taking some steps to try to ensure that we can help our members being educated on what it takes to be in the exporting business, as well as connecting them with tools and resources so that they can grow that part of their business. So what did we learn from all of this? You know, we've learned that each BIA member needs to personally feel that NJBIA is for a business like theirs. And you see on your screen this concept of being a business like mine. Well, this is what we need to do. BIA needs to feel very personal to you. We need to ask ourselves constantly, how can we be more responsive to your needs? What services can we provide you that we're not providing? And how can we help you to be successful? The listening tour, as well as the market survey, has given us a boatload of information to help us inform our steps as we go forward. Let's take a look at some of the things that we are contemplating as we move forward. And, you know, all parallel with this, I think I've shared with you many times that we have been doing a deep dive strategic planning process. What we'd like to say here at BIA is that we're planning and doing at the same time. You know, the world doesn't come to a halt so that we can all go in the corner and plan how we're going to deliver products and services in the future. So we have to continue to deliver while we continue to plan. And together as a team, we have been working tirelessly, I would say, with this great BIA staff to identify new opportunities, new products and services for you, for our members that are relevant to what you need. So let's talk about some examples of some new member services. A 24-hour member hotline. This hotline is meant to provide back office support specifically for the smaller business. Think about all the issues you face on a daily basis. HR issues, legal issues, tax issues, insurance issues. It can be extremely overwhelming, and we understand that. And you tell us this. Our goal for our Member Action Center is to be a 24-hour hotline for you so that you can call us and we can help you. We're here to provide subject matter expertise, whether it's internally through our own subject matter experts, which we have in many of the areas that I said before, HR, legal, tax, and insurance, or through an externally created professional services network where we will be providing referral services for professional services like lawyers, CPAs, or folks who are very well versed in insurance. This hotline will be available for you to call in, be connected to someone who can take your question. They may be able to troubleshoot it right there, or they're going to take their time to get you the right answer and get back to you. Now, we say 24-hour member hotline. Well, let me just assure you, we are not in the office 24 hours a day, though many days it does feel like it. And candidly, I know I wake up 3 o'clock in the morning thinking about what's on my members' minds, and I really do. I know, I really do. But in any event, the hotline, when we say 24-hour, we will promise a 24-hour turnaround on any question that we get. And whether that means that we have to further refer you for something else or we have the direct answer, but the key is it'll be a 24-hour turnaround on any question you have for us. We are very excited about launching this, and our hope is that we'll be able to start a soft launch into the fall and then be all ramped up and ready for 2016. So if there are types of issues that you think we should be considering as we start to build our Member Action Center, please share that with me today so that can continue to help us to inform our efforts as we go forward. Let's talk about events. I shared earlier that our survey told us that we need to provide the right events for the right audience. We are planning to do this, and in fact, we have started to do this. We have started to have more networking events. Our goal is to have networking events across the state right in your community so that it is convenient for you to get to. We've been hosting these networking events at our member companies, and they've been great. 2 weeks ago, I attended one of our networking events here in Mercer County. We had an amazing crowd. The vibe in the room was fabulous. People were exchanging business cards, and they even got to hear for a few minutes about the 5 credits of the 5 C's of lending from our banking supporter that day, our host, which was Investors Bank in Robbinsville, New Jersey. But I have to tell you, when you come to these events and you feel the vibe in the room and the excitement of the members, we know that this is what our members want. Our members are very excited about sharing business opportunities with each other, and BIA wants to provide the right opportunity for you to connect with each other. When we talk about the right event for the right audience, we also have to recognize that seminars on HR issues, health benefits, sales, and marketing are areas that our members tell us are important for them. These are the types of issues that, whether you have to deliver a service in your company or it's about selling your company to others, these are the types of issues that seminars would provide great resources for. So not only do we want to have seminars where we'll have great speakers come out and share with you nuts and bolts around issues like this, but we also want to build a resource library where you can come to our website and you can download videos as well as perhaps some books and other resources, tools, or links to resources and tools directly from your BIA website. So seminars are a very important part, and education is a very important part. But again, the right event for the right audience. We have our Meet the Decision Makers series. As we go forward, we know that continuing to keep you up to date on legislative activity is very important. We also know that it is very difficult through any of these events for members to come out to the events live in person. And therefore, doing more of our events like we are today, webinar, or doing them in video so you can download them, are the types of products that you need from us. It's easier to take an hour out of your day, like today at 11 o'clock, than it is to get in your car, drive across the state to sit down for a few hours. We recognize that, and we want to be bringing more products and services directly to you in a manner like this, more electronic communication. And information on government policies impacting business. Again, it's so important that we be here to answer questions. When there is a bill that is in play at the State House, when there is a new law that is enacted and passed, that's when our phone rings, and that's when we need to be here to answer the questions you have on how that impacts and affects you. Contextualizing those advocacy efforts, that's what we need to do. We need to explain it in a way that you understand, and hopefully when you call in, we'll be able to tell you how any change in a bill is going to impact you dramatically, whether it be by cost or red tape, and hopefully, how we've gotten in the way of making that be an increased cost or more red tape. Another thing we learned about is the need for more discount programs. You know, businesses, every day you're in the market of having to deliver services and keeping your business running, and we know that. It's very hard for you to be able to take the time to go find the least expensive shipping company, the least expensive insurance company, things like that. So we are hoping to launch some new, what we call affinity programs, going into the new year as well. Certainly right now we have some that we're very proud of and that provide great resources for our members. But again, we need to understand from you, and our survey did give us ideas of the types of discount programs that we could provide at BIA that would help you to run your business in an easier way. And then another opportunity is providing more opportunities for you to have visibility through NJBIA. So certainly coming out to events like networking events and having the opportunity to exchange business cards with each other is one way to do that. Another way is giving you visibility through your opportunity to co-brand with NJBIA, whether that be through banner ads on our New Jersey Business Today, which is delivered to 27,000 people every day at 4 p.m. and Saturday morning at 8 a.m., or perhaps visibility in our magazine or on our website. These are important issues. Let me take a moment to talk about the timing of some of these initiatives and to actually talk about the website, because I've mentioned that a few times. So as we said, we're planning and doing at the same time. You may start to feel some subtle changes in our events. I hope you do, because we've been trying to bring some of these changes already into events that have been pre-scheduled. But we know we've already launched some networking events. We know we've shifted some of the way we do some of our other events. We've looked at new geographical ways to do our events or have them in different geographies across the state and deliver them. But what's important too in our communication is our ability to be there for you in a way that you can get resources right off our website. And this requires us to do a revamp of our website. This fall, we are going to begin the process, and our hope is that in the winter, we will be delivering to you a new website that is more user-friendly, that is chock full of very important information for you, but not just that the information is there, it's that you can access it in a very easy manner. So we'll be working on that over the next few months, and we're very excited about the plans we have for our new website and how it will provide more offerings to you in a more member-friendly way. And then as we go into the new year, we are looking for opportunities to celebrate all these changes, and we also look at potentially kicking off a brand relaunch sometime into the spring. So I'm going to pause for a minute because, as you can tell, I need a drink of water, and maybe we have some questions. And I know we do have one question, so Peter, you want to hit me up with some questions, please?
Okay, Michele, we have a question from D, who emailed this to me a little bit earlier this morning. He or she says, I am a self-employed handyman working about 6 to 15 hours a week. He or she would like to know, why must I pay a high fee to join your organization to enable me to obtain car insurance through NJM? I have reviewed your topics, help for small business, suggestions, etc., and none are relevant to me. And he or she ends by saying, I bet you don't answer this on the webinar. Well, you lost that bet, and I would say that this is sort of a perfect segue back into what you were just discussing, which is we really want to be more responsive to what our members want and develop programs and information that they can use.
Dee, thank you for that question. You know, we do get this question oftentimes, and let me start by sharing the history, because the history is a really great story and not a lot of people know about it. So NJBIA is 105 years old, and I invite you to close your eyes for a minute and take yourself back to an industrializing Trenton 105 years ago. Basically what you had is manufacturing, and we had about a half a dozen manufacturing companies here who got together and said, you know, we need to be proactive in protecting our companies and protecting our employees. And at about that time, there were some reform-minded legislators who were looking at passing policies that would allow employees to bring direct lawsuits to employers. So this group of manufacturers got together and they created the New Jersey Manufacturing Association, which is today the New Jersey Business and Industry Association. And what they did about that time is they said, how are we going to protect our employees and how are we going to protect ourselves? And at that point, they created New Jersey Manufacturers Insurance Company. So I think the history is very interesting to go back and learn that actually NJBIA created NJM. And the reason why they did is to provide benefits to their members back then. Well, that story rings true today. BIA exists to provide those types of benefits to their members. And NJM Insurance is over 100 years of benefit to our members. So I said people ask us this oftentimes, and I would suggest that we are very cognizant of the fact that you have to pay BIA dues in order to gain access to NJM Insurance. It is the Uber affinity program. That's how it works. But being cognizant of the fact that many small businesses are very cost-minded and that their margins for profit are very small, we've kept our entry-level dues, which is from 1 employee to 24 employees, at $220. Now, I would suggest to you, Dee, that even though $220 is a lot of money in and of itself, if you compared that level of dues for the services that you receive and the access to those types of benefits to any other organization across the state, you would find that this entry-level dues is significantly less than most of your regional chambers of commerce. So I know the answer is you don't want to pay the dues in order to get access to that, but I think it's really important to explain to folks the rich history and the fact that NJM is and has been for over 100 years the key benefit and the key reason way 100 years ago why people became members of NJBIA. And since that time, we have been able to expand upon those services. And what I was sharing with you earlier in terms of our planning and strategy going forward, we recognize that NJM insurance is but one benefit of your BIA membership, and it's incumbent upon us to ask all of you, what other services and products do you need so that that $220 D is relevant to you? So I would ask you, I know you said that nothing else we provide you right now is of value to you, that the issues that we raise or the events that we're holding, you don't see them of value to you. And as you heard, we're planning a lot of new opportunities to be more relevant in the future. So I would invite you to send in your ideas and your thoughts. Please, I need to know, for a small company like yours, what are the types of issues we can help you with? Is that 24-hour return time on a call into our Member Action Center going to be of value to you when you can pick up the phone and call us if you have an issue on the road about your insurance or about a tax issue, or whether you have another employee or not, an HR issue that could impact you? I would suggest that that's of value to you, and hopefully you'll be able to take advantage of it.
You talked about member networking a few minutes ago, Michele. Just had another question about our new program to marry up the association with young professionals. We had a very successful networking event up north in Newark a few weeks back, and we plan on holding more of those. So what's the connection? What connection are we looking to try to make there?
Oh, great. Oh, great. I'm glad that someone brought that issue forward, Peter, because I did mean to mention that. When we talk about segmentation and we talk about actually providing the right product for the right audience, we also recognize that we have 4 generations of workers in the workforce today, and each of them have their own unique way of wanting to be communicated to and want to build their networks and their relationships in different ways as well. So 2 weeks ago, we did launch our Young Professionals group up in Newark. We had a great turnout with some amazing momentum and a bunch of young professionals who were really excited to be a part of a formal launch going forward that would then look at a series of programming, series of issues that are important to young professionals, and work with BIA directly on delivering the types of services that young professionals would be looking for. Another important piece to this, and we always say to the more senior generations in the workforce, that it is incumbent upon the senior generations to bring up the young professionals, to provide the young professionals the right opportunities to network so that those young professionals can start building their own relationships and become rainmakers, candidly. And the only way they do that is by having access to events and also to resources and education that teaches them, how do you network in a room with other people? I'm uncomfortable when I come in. I've never done this before. How do we give them an environment where they can learn the right way to do that, where they can start to build relationships that I know, candidly, they'll keep throughout their whole professional career?
We have one more question for this segment, and it's about events. You talked about events a little bit, and I know moving forward the intent is to make events more meaningful to our members, particularly if you can talk to the first-year member experience, because one thing we found is that our numbers are pretty good in terms of the long-time or several-year association member, but less so for the association member who may have just begun with us. I can't pretend to understand why that's the case, but what is your thought process in trying to address that moving forward?
Thanks, Peter. It's a great question. It's all about member engagement from day one. So the day someone becomes an NJBIA member, that very first day, we need to be reaching out to the member and asking them on day one, what can BIA do for you? What do you need out of your BIA membership? And then once we listen to the member, direct them to the products and services that we have that are a match for what they need. Again, this targeted, right audience, right product. This is a consistent theme. Through that first year, we can't leave the new member on day one to their own, right? So we ask them on day one. We have to follow up with them and see how they're doing. We are going to have a member orientation, quarterly webinar, inviting them to come to that. We're going to explain to them and give them a series of events coming up, networking events that might be in their area, and invite them to come out to that, as well as any educational events we may have or other seminars or special events. Our goal is to touch the member more during their first year experience so that they feel that BIA is for a business like them, making sure that they are getting the answers and the products and services that they need. So more frequent calls, more frequent touches, and just letting them know that we are here for them. And I think if we do that the right way, if we touch them more during that first year, they're going to understand that BIA is for a business like them. They're going to find the right suite of products and services that we deliver that are of value to them, and they're going to see exponentially that BIA is relevant and something that they can't be without as they go forward.
I'd like to remind our audience to please send us your questions. We will get to all of them at the conclusion of Michelle's presentation. But for now, Michele, I'd like to invite you to move through and talk a little bit about the hot policy issues we're working on and what we're going to be doing moving forward through the summer and into the fall.
Great, thanks, Peters. Yes, so we're going to shift to some issues that we know impact New Jersey businesses. And now that the budget is over, we have an opportunity to step back, to sit down, and to plan a proactive legislative agenda as we move forward. And that's what we've been doing. So we've identified a few issues based upon what our members have told us, issues that are critical and important to them. One of them is reforming death taxes, and we'll talk a bit about why this is so important. We all know that New Jersey is a very difficult state when it comes to the amount of taxes and mandates that are placed upon business. Dramatic reform of our state's tax structure is not likely anytime soon. So as we always say, when you can't change something that's structurally broken, we need to find ways to mitigate against those very difficult systems. So one way to do that is to bring relief on estate and inheritance tax. Now, I always start by telling the story that while I was out at one of our ELCs, I believe, down in South Jersey, at the end of the event, a gentleman came up to me, introduced himself, and told me about his business. And then he turned to his left and he introduced me to his son. And he said, "This is my succession plan. This is the next generation of my family-run business." He said, "And my son-in-law is back at the shop because all three of us couldn't come this morning. Someone had to run the business. So my succession plan is my son and my son-in-law." Then he turned to me and he said, "But you know what? If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, once they pay the estate and inheritance tax, because they'll each get hit in a different way, son and son-in-law, once they pay the estate and inheritance taxes, the business won't survive. The business won't survive." That's a real story. This guy wasn't making this up, okay? Now, a lot of folks say, it's a death tax, you're gone, who cares, okay? We all know in the business world, especially for a family-run business, that your succession planning is your estate planning. And sure, you could choose to avoid those taxes by retiring out of the state of New Jersey, which we do not want you to do, okay? But you can't avoid, God forbid, getting hit by the bus the next day, and then your family being saddled with taxes, that next generation of your business, and your business not being able to sustain. So two very important points here. Number one, absolutely, people can choose avoidance of these taxes, and they can move out of the state of New Jersey. Guess what? They are, and they are every day. The outward migration continues, and it is of concern. But the other side of this is, let's not forget that people can't plan for that immediate tragedy. You can't possibly plan for that, and that's what scares a lot of people as well. So we are looking for legislative support for estate and inheritance tax reform. Right now, New Jersey's exemption from estate tax is the lowest in the country, $675,000. Now think for a moment. New Jersey is a high-cost state. If you are fortunate enough in the state of New Jersey to own a home and have worked through your career and saved some money in your pension or your 401k, guess what? You've already exceeded that. So you're on the hook for those taxes come time when your estate gets set up. New Jersey is one of 14 states with dual death taxes, and New Jersey is one of 14 states with an estate tax and one of 7 with an inheritance tax. We're only one of 2 that have both, only one of 2 that still have both an estate and inheritance tax. Maryland is the other, but Maryland has already started to reform their estate tax, and they have increased their threshold. Now, again, we remain the lowest exemption threshold in the country, that does not make us competitive to either our surrounding states or any state in the country that competes with us for talent. This threshold captures many middle-class taxpayers, as we said, even a small pension and a small home. So let's share some statistics on outward migration that are startling. I'm going to put a map up here that scares me every time I look at it. But according to a 2010 report by Boston College, between 2004 and 2008, the state lost 302,000 plus households. And during that same period, New Jersey's inflow of wealth dropped by $183 billion and declined in net wealth by $168 billion. Another study issued by Region Atlantic in 2014 reported that over 87,000 2010 federal tax returns that were filed in the state of New Jersey by people were in a state other than New Jersey the year before. So in 2009, they filed in New Jersey. In 2010, over 87,000 filed in another state. That was wealth that left the state of New Jersey. That wealth equates to over $5.5 billion in one single year. Okay? Now that's money that is not coming to the general fund that affords us the opportunity to cover the costs and expenses of the state of New Jersey. And I stopped to think about, with all that outward migration, if we were able to keep the money that has flowed out of the state within the state, how our general fund may fare today. So these studies have found that over half the residents cited moved to states without either an inheritance or an estate tax. So I'm going to repeat that. The states that these residents went to when they left the state of New Jersey was to a state that had neither an inheritance or an estate tax. Okay, there's that tax avoidance we talked about before. Of the 87,000 residents who I mentioned earlier, between the 9 and 10 who left, 41% moved to Florida. Now, I have to say, Florida absolutely does have better weather than New Jersey. We all talk about wanting to go to a warmer climate, but we know that many of them left not just for the warmer climate. It was tax avoidance, and we hear it every single day. New Jersey's top tax bracket is almost 3 times higher than Pennsylvania's top bracket, and Pennsylvania residents working in New Jersey do not pay New Jersey income tax. This is non-competitive and an open invitation for New Jersey residents to move. It's an important example of why we have to have reform in order to keep our state competitive. So let's talk about another important issue, infrastructure. So all we've heard over the past year, the headlines have been about transportation, and we know that the state of transportation infrastructure in the state of New Jersey is in a poor state, and we've heard about the challenges in funding it as we go forward. We have some stats for you up on the screen you can see. 624 of the 6,566 New Jersey bridges are structurally deficient. 18 freight railroads covering 983 miles rank New Jersey 40th nationally. We are ranked for having wonderful infrastructure in the state of New Jersey, and candidly, these freight railroads is what keeps our logistics and distribution industry here in the state of New Jersey as roaring as it is, and all of that coming from our great port, where we have the 3rd best port in the world. In these railroads, the ability for us to move freight is significant. If we don't keep these in good repair, we're going to start seeing diminished returns in that industry. We know that 35% of New Jersey's major roads are in poor condition, and we know that New Jersey ports handled 152.7 million tons of cargo in 2012, again, ranking it 4th nationally. So if you look at that second stat and that 4th stat, this is talking about us as a powerhouse because of where we are located, ideally located, and because of the infrastructure that we have. But when you look at stats like 1 and 3, that's 624 and that 35%, it really causes concern. If we can't keep the infrastructure up to where it needs to be, we're going to start seeing impacts to what is an industry that drives New Jersey's economy, and that being logistics and distribution. So put aside logistics and distribution. How about each of you? You all have to get to work every day. I know the roads I drive on. I know I hit the potholes. In fact, I'm thrilled. Finally, they paved a section of 295 that I'd been driving over for 3 months. I thought the bottom of my car was just going to fall out. But it's paved now, and I'm a happy camper. But this all takes money. We know that. And there's a lot of talk about Transportation Trust Fund. We're hoping to see some action on that before the end of the year. There was discussion earlier this year about a gas tax. And we have to be honest with ourselves. If there's going to be movement, let's not fool ourselves. Gas tax is going to be part of the solution. Whether we agree with it or not, it's going to be part of the solution, because it is a tax that is out there, that is available. New Jersey's is the lowest in the country, and it's something that everyone gravitates to quickly. Now, please don't take anything I just said as that we're advocating for an increase in a gas tax, but if I'm a betting girl, which I am, I'm feeling that gas tax is absolutely going to be part of the equation for solving the funding side of Transportation Trust Fund. If that is the case, here is a tremendous opportunity for us to bring in that estate and inheritance tax reform we just talked about a few moments ago, in order to talk about easing another type of tax impact for the benefit of having to be hit harder on another one. This whole idea of net impact is very important, and this was a discussion earlier this year, but unfortunately fell off the radar. So we're ready that if gas tax comes up, we will be there with estate and inheritance tax reform as well. So let's just put TTF aside for a moment, Transportation Trust Fund, because what's important to us at BIA is that we comprehensively look at the state's infrastructure. What do I mean by that? Well, under the roads, we have pipes. We have lots of pipes. We have water and wastewater pipes. And under and above the roads, we have wires and pipes, and that's our energy infrastructure. And we have cable lines, and that's telecommunications. All of these infrastructure assets are ones that are critical and vital to the sustainability of business in the state of New Jersey. We need to think about infrastructure as a reinvestment in ourselves. We need to think about the fact that when we make an investment in infrastructure, it is an investment in the state growing, the opportunity to create new jobs and get people where they need to be. Now, raising money is only one side of the equation. The most important side of this is how we spend the money. And we need to have the right infrastructure banks that are able to leverage revenue that comes in a way that maximizes every dollar that comes in. Let me give you an example of what I'm talking about. The Transportation Trust Fund, the bank for transportation, is broken. We know it. Everyone who understands the funding of the Transportation Trust Fund understands that it has a poor credit rating because of its history. And if we were to do a revenue raise and put money right back into the same bank the way it exists today, I would say shame on us. The reason being, when you have a low credit rating, if you go out to leverage those dollars to put them out in the bond market, it's going to come at a high price. And therefore, the interest rates are going to be high. And you all know, when you have high interest rates, that means you're paying a premium for the ability to borrow that money. What we need is we need a bank that has a AAA credit rating so that when it goes out to the bond market, the cost of leveraging those dollars is minuscule. And that's the type of bank we need to build for all of our infrastructure going forward. And we hope that that's part of the equation. So what is BIA doing to address this? Because you all tell us that infrastructure is a key and critical issue for you as we go forward. We've developed a special series of public policy events to examine these issues, which will take place through this fall. We're going to start with Commissioner Bob Martin from DEP, who's going to talk about the state's water and wastewater infrastructure on September 15, followed by a panel where we're going to discuss the whole concept of long-term asset management planning. And I want to emphasize the term long-term. I think what scares everybody off in infrastructure is it's so big and it's so complex and it's so expensive. I mean, you've heard it, billions of dollars, right? That we all get scared and we shy away and we kick the can. Long-term asset management planning means that we will look at a time horizon of 20, 30, 40, 50 years. We're talking about the type of assets that have a long life cycle, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So the idea is to bond those types of assets over that life cycle. So we're not talking about spending $1 billion tomorrow. We're talking about putting together a comprehensive plan over the long term to manage those assets, to maintain those assets, and to replace those assets in a way that makes them sustainable over time. So we start with Commissioner Martin on September 15. In October, we're going to have, and that's not referenced on here right now, but we're going to be having a discussion around telecommunications with a focus on the vulnerability of telecommunications when we have the new Department of Banking and Insurance Commissioner join us along with Homeland Security on a discussion of cybersecurity and the vulnerabilities to our telecommunications industry. Then on November 4th, we're going to have BPU President Rick Moroz, who's going to discuss utility infrastructure with a focus on energy, talk about the new microgrid that's taking place up north, and again, a comprehensive discussion of how do we, I mean, think about this, you know, when you're going to open the road to replace a road on transportation, why not look what's underneath it, be it water, energy, be it pipes, be it wires, and do it in a comprehensive manner. Rounding out this series will be Transportation Commissioner Jamie Foxx, who has been invited along with some of the governor's key policy advisors to discuss the state's transportation needs going into the future. So this series will take place from September through November. And the goal of this series is for us to be being informed about what the issues and opportunities are and creating an agenda for action. And then in 2016, we will be hosting an infrastructure summit and propose policy solutions that NJBIA will lead as we go forward in 2016 in a very proactive manner to address long-term asset management for New Jersey's infrastructure.
Thank you.
Let's take a pause and see.
Thanks, Michele. We have a few. I'd like to start off by following up on some of the things you said regarding the estate and inheritance tax, because it is systemic and inherent that the state's tax structure is, you hate to use words like burdensome, but it's a very difficult situation for businesses. So it's not only the estate and inheritance tax. So for example, are there other solutions? For example, we tax pensions. So that could be a factor that's causing people to say, I want to move to a place where they don't tax pensions. Or there's high property taxes that people no longer want to pay. So how do we attack that in totality? And is it just the estate and inheritance taxes maybe the one that we have the best chance of accomplishing a reform on?
It's very challenging, Peter. As we know, we have a very complex tax structure here in the state of New Jersey, and you can't do it all at one time, and you can't bite off more than you can chew. And I think this is the problem in the state of New Jersey. Oftentimes, whether it's on our side of trying to help to resolve issues or on the legislative side in trying to resolve issues, we tend to take a bigger issue than we can handle at one time. We need to break these issues down so that we can have iterative success along the way. You know, when we talk about anything, we talk about over the long term, how can we do things that have little incremental positive effects, which all together have a good cumulative impact at the end. So I would suggest that, you know, absolutely, taxing of pensions, huge, huge. I mean, we hear that all the time. People who are ready to retire, I'm out of here, they're going to tax my pension, they're not going to tax it in Pennsylvania. Right next door, they're not going to tax pension in Pennsylvania. You could sit at the bridge every day. We're right here in downtown Trenton, and you could sit at the bridge going across to whether it's the Morrisville or the Trenton Makes or the Route 1, any of those bridges, and you see the Pennsylvania plates leaving Trenton and heading across. Pennsylvania doesn't tax pension, okay? Big issue. Property tax, absolutely. And we know how challenging property tax reform is, and that's a big gorilla. You know, we talk about the 800-pound gorillas in the room, right? 3 of them, infrastructure, property tax. Oh, I'm forgetting my third. Infrastructure, property tax. What's our pensions and funding government pensions. Those are the 3 most complex, comprehensive challenges facing the state of New Jersey. We can't do it at one time. So why are we picking off the state inheritance tax? Our members tell us this is an important issue for them. Our generational businesses tell us that they can't do their business succession planning without us addressing this. And candidly, our legislators have told us that they have the appetite to take up this issue. So we're hoping that collectively we can get some movement on that.
Hey, Michele, we have 3 questions from Douglas Johnson of AARP. Douglas, I hope you understand that we may only do 1 or 2 of these, but hopefully we can get back to you on some of the other information later, but we thank you for the kind words and some of the things you said. But Douglas, and this is about events, he says, we've attended many events. Your public policy forums with elected officials are great and well facilitated. Have we considered discounts for attending such forums, discounts for number of participants, or for retired professionals or the like?
Doug, thank you very much. Great point. As we look at our events for next year, we talk about doing things in a series. So you just heard me talk about the infrastructure series, for example, the 4 MDMs, meet the decision makers. We've talked about if somebody signs up for the series, let's discount it. So we are looking at those types of opportunities. Recognizing that not all our businesses are created equal, we have to be conscious. Something we heard in our survey, our events are expensive. We need to look at how we deliver our events, the venues within which we have our events. Oftentimes our pricing is dictated by the venue. We've done our events have been very nice because at many of our events we offer a very nice breakfast or a very nice lunch that comes with a price tag, and these venues are very expensive. So we need to ask ourselves, do we need to be in venues like that? Do we need to have the really nice breakfast? Is it more about the networking and the engagement in order to be able to drive the cost of our events down? And those are things that we're looking at. So discounts is one way to look at it for certain segments of our membership. And the second part of it, though, is just candidly driving the cost down for everyone so that more people feel that they have better accessibility. And that's the key. Accessibility means location, it means cost, and it means topic.
And right in the events vein, because we've not had a chance to talk about it, we have a big event coming up in September. We announced it publicly this week. We've announced it on our website, and we've had a really good response so far, and that's the first Women Business Leaders Forum, a very important topic with a lot of good information for a lot of folks. So if we could talk a little bit about what we're hoping to accomplish and what type of information we're looking to provide to those who are able to attend.
Thanks for asking about the Women Business Leaders Forum. We're very excited about this event. This event has been a year in the making. Our goal of this event is to provide hardcore leadership skills discussion amongst senior level women as well as emerging female professionals. We have an amazing panel of female leaders from across the state who will be participating with us. And the idea is a couple of keynotes, which will talk at a higher level about leadership that leads to the C-suite. Now let me talk about the theme of this. The goal of this event is to drive leadership skills toward an avenue of leading women to the C-suite, whether it means in chief roles like chief executive roles or paid board seats. The statistics show us that while women have come a little further than they've been decades ago, they still lag way far behind in terms of being on corporate boards and being at high-level positions in the C-suite. So this is what this program is geared toward. We will have some general session discussions, and then we have 2 breakout sessions where we actually get into the nitty-gritty, if you will, of building the skill set that's needed. What should the resume look like? And I think the way to say this really is the C-suite demands a certain something. Okay? It demands it. So how do we work with our women, our professional women, to let them know what are the skills that are being demanded in the C-suite? What are the relationships that need to be built to get to the C-suite? Because let's not kid ourselves. Oftentimes it's still about who you know and how you've come along. And then how do we take what we learned from this session, September 25th up at the Parsippany Hilton, how do we take from this meeting and establish an agenda to continue to move this dialogue forward? Real action. So that day we're also going to have resources and tools. Women are going to walk away with access to know, I can go to this website and see where there are board seats available. I can go take this training to beef up on this skill that I don't have. Here are the certain events I should be at to meet the movers and shakers. Those are the types of connections we're going to make. And our goal also, as I said, is emerging young professional women as well. For every woman who's made it to the C-suite, she owes it to the next generation to reach back and bring the next young woman along.
And Michele, back on policy for a moment, because there's a lot of interesting, we would say negative, but many would say interesting things going on in the area of setting rules of employment. That's a fancy way of saying there are a lot of local ordinances on subjects like paid sick leave, minimum wage, We just had some wage and hour ordinances in Jersey City about not paying workers what the law says you are supposed to, and it's kind of almost a new way of doing business. So traditionally, we have sort of advanced our positions on subjects like these in Trenton, in the state capitol, on a statewide basis. But now we find that a lot of these new things, ways of setting wages, ways of setting rules of work, ways of setting benefits, are set on a local level. So you might find Newark and Jersey City, which are the two largest cities, have a number of these ordinances in place. So what does this mean for the state's economic climate, number one? And number two, what is the inherent difficulty of sort of shifting from debating these issues on a statewide level to debating them on a local level where, quite frankly, the action is right now?
I actually think your two questions lead to the same answer, is that the challenge is we're creating a patchwork of rules. That's not good for the state's economy. It's making us less competitive every day with our neighboring states, as well as any other states who might not be neighboring but are competing for our talent. So, picture a business. Some of you on the line today may be this business. You have one location in Jersey City. You have a second location in Newark. You have a third location in Morris Plains, and you have a fourth location in Atlantic City. If every one of them had their own rules, how the heck are you going to operate? How inefficient are you going to be? Are you going to take the most stringent of the rules and apply them to all of your workforce in all places? Because are you really going to treat your employees differently? Classic example, paid sick leave. BIA, we're a Trenton business. We're located here in Trenton. Trenton has an ordinance. We have an office up in Fairfield where we have about 10 employees. Those 10 employees are now subject to the Trenton ordinance. Why? Because for practicality, I'm only going to have one set of policies for my employees. I'm not going to treat them differently just because of geographically in the state of New Jersey there's someone else. It'd be insane. So these are very, very concerning and difficult issues if we're going to continue to proceed forward with a patchwork of local ordinances that is just going to have business owners, pulling their hair out of their head. The other part of this is, the municipalities themselves. Take two municipalities that are right next door to each other. What if you have a business that spans, you have a warehouse that spans over two municipalities? What are you going to do? So this is not good for our economic climate. This is not good for New Jersey's competitiveness, and I would suggest if there's going to be any further social move on paid sick leave, that it be at the federal level, because at least at the federal level, New Jersey doesn't become any less competitive than any other state.
Michele, we have a couple of questions here, and I hope I'm pronouncing this name right. Sorry if I'm not, but Prana Shah wants to know, those local laws are for those that work in those towns only, or for those that live in those towns as well?
That's a great question. The local ordinances are limited to the businesses, doing business in those towns and the employees in that town. So I'll share with you the Trenton ordinance. We challenged the Trenton ordinance when it went into effect. And while we didn't win the challenge, which means the ordinance is still in effect, we did get the judge on the bench to limit the ordinance. So what does that mean? The ordinance, the language on itself, if you read the language of the ordinance, it said that employees, doing business in the city of Trenton. So an employee coming through the city of Trenton, that could be interpreted as a lawyer in an Atlantic City law firm who spends more than 80 hours a year in federal court, which is in Trenton. They could be considered an employee conducting business in the city of Trenton and could have been, on the terms of the ordinance, subjected to the ordinance on a liberal reading of the ordinance. And the judge said that can absolutely not be the intent, nor will I allow it to be the intent, and she limited the ordinance to only companies within the corners of the municipality and their employees in that municipality.
Well, Michele, you said you were a betting girl, so we have a question from Al de Blasio, which requires you to look into your crystal ball, and he wants to know, 3 years from now, and there's probably no good answer to this question, which gets you off the hook, but 3 years from now, realistically, what will have been accomplished with respect to death taxes, infrastructure, and pension reform. All three easy topics. There's just easy solutions. Tell us how many decades it's going to take to solve those.
Well, Al, I want to reiterate that I think everything has to be about iterative steps toward improvement. And 3 years from now, I'm hoping that that I'm still here at the helm of BIA and looking back to the impact that BIA had to move a proactive agenda forward on these issues. Will they be completely taken care of? Absolutely not. These are decades-long solutions in the making. But you know what? We're not going to be here kicking the can down the road. We say it starts today, and we're proud to be a leader in that.
Well, Michele, that's about all the time we have today, so unfortunately we're going to have to bring things to a close for today. Just a few notes here. Don't forget, all of you will be receiving a recording of today's webinar via email, and you will be getting the PowerPoint presentation via email as well. Still a couple more minutes to download it yourself. If you look at your screen, you'll see the link to download it and print it out right there. Lastly, we'll be sending you a survey that we hope you'll fill out so we can understand how best to provide you important information in a webinar format. Our next webinar will take place on August 13th. It's a Thursday at noon with our next Live from the State Capitol featuring Melanie Willoughby and Tyler Seville talking about workforce development and career readiness, both very important topics and topics we spend a lot of time working on here at the association. I'd like to thank Vinny Civitello, who's a great part of our webinar team, for putting these together.